This hourly segment is brought to you by OnStar. Connected with Chicago. News Talk 890, WLS.
810 with Don Wade and Roma. Three political items. Well, sort of political. We wanted to cover in a quick way so that we can move along. First is the former First Lady, Barbara Bush, on the Today Show. She said those candidates for the Democratic nomination for president, they're a sorry bunch, aren't they? She said it.
Well, she's always been known to be a straight talker and more dangerous, the press thought, than her husband.
All right. So, yeah, her husband, always the diplomat. He was a, CIA guy, then UN ambassador, all of those things, and then president. The son, though, her son, the current president of the United States, George W., in Bangkok, Thailand, he gets the Malaysian prime minister in a face-to-face, and he tells him he's wrong. He says, your comments, quote, your comments stand squarely against what I believe in. He tells him straight to his face. Now, the New York Times writes that they thought that the White House, the president, would stay mum on that Malaysian prime minister's comments and wait for the prime minister to retire in a few months, and that way the president wouldn't have to step into this thing. But surprise, surprise, George W. Bush proves again that he is a man of character and that he has beliefs and that he knows what it means to be a leader. And he grabs this prime minister and he says straight to his face he doesn't believe in anti-Semitic slurs, and he decided that he would make it clear, even as he visits largely Muslim nations. Condi Rice says the prime minister's comments were hateful. She says that the president thought they were reprehensible. The views of the prime minister are not emblematic of the Muslim world, and that he should be isolated and condemned. And the president did it.
He pulled him aside, told him there was no place for that, and apparently he's now saying, the Malaysian prime minister is now saying that, in fact, he was misquoted, etc.
Yeah, all taken out of context. What he had said was that the Jews run the world by proxy. So you can get into all kinds of arguments over the exact wording and try to split hairs. But he knew what he was saying, and he knew what the impact of his statement would be. And so our president has now given him his criticism, and I think that everybody knows where everybody stands. Okay, now let's get to the Ronald Reagan movie. This is astounding that this movie is even being made, and there's so much about it that's nutty. CBS has this upcoming film that they have produced. And in that film, now the story was it was written about in Drudge, but I have the full story, and it's in the New York Times, written by Jim Ruttenberg. And CBS is not going to, they're not going to avoid controversy. They are jumping right into it with this movie called The Reagans. It's a two-part miniseries, and they step right into this partisan debate over President Ronald Reagan's legacy. Now, friends and relatives of Ronald Reagan are very concerned about what they consider a deconstruction of Ronald Reagan's presidency because it's being shot through a liberal lens, and it is exaggerating his foibles and giving short shrift to his accomplishments. Now, number one, this is amazing in the casting of this thing. The part of Ronald Reagan is played by James Brolin.
That's Barbara Streisand's husband.
Barbara Streisand's husband.
And not only, Streisand.
And he is right over there on the far left side, just slightly to the left of Joe Stalin with Barbara Streisand.
Do you
Very
mind if
good.
I correct your pronunciation of my name?
Yeah, okay.
Please, Streisand. I'm sorry.
Streisand.
So many people do that, and I always wonder, am I really famous? How could they say Streisand or Or Zand, they call me a lot.
Zand. Barbara Zand.
No, that's okay. I didn't mean to
I'm glad you
criticize you, but it's like, it would be nice to have my name pronounced right.
She is a sensitive diva, isn't she?
I want to feel passion and heat and sweat and madness. I want Valentines and Cupids and all the rest of that crap. I want it all.
Okay, so Michael Reagan, Ronald Reagan's son, says, I fully expect this miniseries will be largely unfavorable to my dad. Hollywood has been hijacked by the liberal left, and so...
But what do we actually know about this movie?
Let me tell you. Marlon Fitzwater is asked in an interview, does it show that he had the longest and strongest recovery in post-war history, that the economy, stimulated by the tax cuts, was creating something like 200,000 jobs a month for years? Given that the main subject of this is a Republican hero, now suffering from Alzheimer's, the events chosen for depiction are sure to come under scrutiny. Now, they got a hold of the script at the New York Times, and they go over some of the stuff in here. And they run it down. It's a big story in the New York Times today. There is no mention of the economic recovery or the creation of wealth during his administration. The details that the producers do choose to stress, like moments of forgetfulness, his supposed opinions on AIDS and gays, his laissez-faire handling of his staff often carry disapproving tones. Mrs. Reagan is depicted as a control addict who set the president's schedule based on her astrologer's advice. This thing is going to be on TV on CBS November 16 and 18. And they say, CBS says, oh, no, we're just trying to be fair, trying to do an accurate story. And yet, the producers of this, who are two lefties, I mean, they are way over there, they said that no major event was depicted with at least two confirming sources, but they said they took dramatic liberty in some spots. Dramatic liberty. Well, let's think.
Well, you know what, Don? I think you're going to have to wait until you see it, because this is much ado over nothing until you see the finished product.
Because they've seen the script. The script accuses Mr. Reagan not only of showing no interest in addressing the AIDS crisis, but of asserting that the patients of AIDS essentially deserved their disease. Mr. Reagan, in this film, says, "They that live in sin shall die in sin," and refuses to discuss the issue further in this scene with his wife. Now, Luke Cannon, who has written several biographies about Mr. Reagan, said such a portrayal was unfair. Reagan was not intolerant. He was a bit asleep at the switch when it came to that, but it's not fair to have him say something like that. Elizabeth Egloff, who's a playwright who wrote the final version of the script, acknowledged there was no evidence such a conversation took place.
So it's partially created.
The final shooting script heavily... Well, they're putting what are considered hateful words in his mouth, and they're making them up.
You know what? I do think that this is strange that it would come out while he's still alive and so completely impaired by Alzheimer's.
Well, let me give you some more evidence that this film has some serious flaws. The final shooting script heavily implies that Mrs. Reagan, in agitating for the resignation of Alexander Haig, the Secretary of State, went so far as to write his resignation letter. But no account holds that Mrs. Reagan wrote such a letter. Nobody says that that's true. In response to a reporter's question about that, the filmmakers decided last week to remove that scene. So here we have a fabricated movie about a man who is a great hero to many Americans and to many people around the world. A film that is made to basically undercut this man, put hateful words in his mouth to create the image that he was nothing but a bumbling, fumbling fool. And we're supposed to say, oh, well, let's just wait until we see it before we say anything.
Well,
James Brolin is playing the president.
So?
That's like saying Joe Stalin is playing the president.
He's an actor, Don. And he does look enough similar to Reagan that he can carry it.
Is this Bruce on the south side?
Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Don. Good morning, Roma. I just wanted to say is, one, as Roma just said, why don't we wait and see what the movie is about, to see if it's really that bad. And as far as James Brolin being selected to play Ronald Reagan, a wise man once said that you should be careful when you're selecting your enemies because you might someday start acting like the enemies. And I get the impression, Don, that you want an actor who's politically correct, a conservative actor who will reflect conservative ideas while he's acting. I mean, you want a litmus test? I mean, what is this, like in the days of Soviet Union, actors didn't work unless they followed the party line, and if they acted in a way that the party felt was not right, they would not be allowed to perform anymore.
Look,
well, I mean, what do you want?
Read lines.
An
they don't
conservative actor?
Yeah, but keep in mind who wrote this, the script.
You want the writers also to be conservative, to reflect conservative ideas.
No, all I'm suggesting, Bruce, and I think that it's pretty clear, that we have two lefties who wrote this thing and produced this thing, and we've got ourselves a whole array of liberals who are playing the roles in this film. Do we believe in our wildest dreams that this is going to be a fair, reasonable view of Ronald Reagan?
Is this supposed to be political or entertainment?
No, it's just supposed to be an accurate portrayal of Ronald Reagan. That's all I ask. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate your call. 821 WLS.
Want to make a statement? Get into a 2004 Chevy Cavalier. Heading out to a concert or taking a long run?
1 week with just one call to Empire Today.
Magician David Blaine out of his box.
Who cares? Stuff him back in again.
Chicago PM, 6 to 7 p.m. weekdays on News Talk 890 WLS.
829 at WLS. So we'll see how the film goes and see how the liberals paint Ronald Reagan. That'll be a fair view. Let's go to the phone.
Talk to Maureen in Skokie.
Okay, Maureen, welcome to WLS.
Good morning.
Hey, Maureen.
I had taped the Oprah show that had Barbara Streisand, and so I just watched it. Oprah said to Barbara, doesn't it bother you at all that your husband is going to be playing Ronald Reagan? And she smiled, and she said, no, because I know he's portraying him correctly. So there's your answer. You don't have to wait and watch.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Now, keep in mind, it's a CBS film. It's produced by two producers who are self-described liberals. The actors in the roles are all liberals, and they've already had to take parts out of it because they manufactured ugly portraits that they had no basis for. There's even stuff in there that there's no basis for, and they ignore a lot of the really great stuff about Ronald Reagan, and they emphasize those things like forgetfulness of a guy who's got Alzheimer's. That's like somebody deciding they're going to do a film about FDR, and let's talk about the why doesn't he stand up more? Let's make fun of the fact that he can't stand up. It's 8:30 WLS.